Hey friends, it's Amy. Welcome to my bookish life. I want to talk about my reading during the first 5 days of January 2024. So let's get to it. So I've been thinking a lot about how to talk about the books that I've read more on my channel, because when I think about doing wrap-ups for the amount of books that I read each month, it is daunting to me. And I don't want to do that, and that's not, I didn't make this channel so I could do things that I don't want to do. So I want to talk about the books that I've read, and I want to share that with all of you, but I don't think that monthly wrap-ups are the answer for me. My thought is every Friday I might get on and record the books that I am reading or listening to, the books that I've finished so far, and just kind of go from there. I've seen this done by a lot of other people. Sarah, the Bookish Knitter, does this kind of thing quite often. Amy at A-Star Reads does this quite often, and I just feel like it feels more doable to have shorter videos closer to the time that I finish the book. I have finished 3 books so far in 2024. I was already in progress with 2 of them when the year started. The one that I don't have with me right now is called Punished by David Lubar. This book I read with my 6th and 7th graders because we're talking about fantasy books this month. And this is a fantasy, it's a super short, but I just love it because it deals a lot with words and wordplay, and it's kind of a perfect read aloud when you want to kind of think about those kind of fun ways to play with words. Logan is the main character, and Logan is in the library and he's running around and he kind of makes the professor mad, and the professor blows some book dust on him, and he can only speak in puns. So his mom asks him to make a salad and he's like, "Let us eat quickly." You know, things like that everybody around him just groans, and he's like, "I'm so sick of everybody groaning around me." So he wants to get this fixed. He goes to find the professor, and the professor gives him tasks that he has to do to possibly solve the problem. It is delightful. He has a best friend who is honestly one of the best friends ever. And I can't think of his name. I feel like it starts with a B. Brandon. He just is just a really good friend, and I just loved that. But it was really fun. I thought to kind of joke around with my students as I was reading and explore the puns that were being made and just the different kinds of ways to play with words. I read it last year, and I just knew that I needed to share it with my students. That was not the first book I finished, though. The first book that I finished was The Promise of Stardust by Priscille Sibley, and I actually got this last month from a book exchange that I did with one of my book clubs. It's a love story complicated by intense moral and ethical questions. She read and rated it 5 stars, and it is for sure a love story complicated by intense moral and ethical questions. It is intense. It is so intense. A love story of Elle and Matt, and they had a very rocky road getting to their happy ending 4 years after they get married, and after struggling immensely with infertility and things like that. Elle is in an accident that makes her brain dead. And Matt, knowing that Elle's wishes were to never to be kept alive with extraordinary circumstances, decides that he is going to let Elle go. He's fully ready to do that until he finds out that Elle was pregnant. And he knows without a shadow of a doubt Elle wanted this baby because shortly before the accident, she had asked him to try again for another baby. And he said, no, it's too risky. We need to stop trying. So he decides that instead of letting her go, he wants to hold on so that she can try to carry the baby to term, or close enough to term that the baby will survive, because he feels that that is what Elle would want. And everyone around him has thoughts on that. The moral implications of it, the ethical implications of it, the wishes of Elle to begin with, and Matt fully understanding that, but also understanding that Elle really wanted this baby and would want him to do everything that he could to make sure that this baby survived. And Matt's looking at it just in the context of his wife. Everybody around him makes it this big political conversation, and he's like, no, it's just my wife. It's just my wife. And it is intense and beautiful and absolutely very difficult to read, but so full of depth. I really, really loved it. I did give it 4.5 stars. There were some aspects of certain characters that didn't seem real. I will be thinking about this one for a really long time. It is really a beautiful book, and it's beautifully written. I would definitely recommend it, but it is definitely not for the faint of heart because it is intense. And then last night I finished The Lies I Tell by Julie Clark. This book I was reading with Katie from Would Rather Be Reading. I'll have her channel linked down below. It's crazy. So it follows Meg and Kay. Meg is kind of a career con woman, and Kay is a reporter that is investigating Kay in order to write a story that exposes her for being a con. She's very passionate about it for certain reasons that you find out in the book. You find out why Meg is the way she is, why Meg is a con woman, how she chooses who she is going to con, and it is a wild ride. I really was in it when it was happening, but honestly, I would say this is a 3.5. I liked it quite a bit. I was in it, but there was a lot of things that just really had me shaking my head and just seemed kind of meh. The pacing seemed a little bit off as well. It jumped quite a bit in the context of a current narrative. However, it was really interesting, and I'm glad that I read it, and I had a lot of fun reading it with Katie. Highly recommend Katie as a Betty Read partner. So thanks for reading this with me, Katie. I'm very glad to have this read. I do think that Julie Clark is an author that I would try again, especially since I think it's The Last Flight is another book of hers that's very intriguing to me. So it's kind of just middle of the road. I would recommend it to certain people, but it's also intense. There's definite trigger warnings in this. I did enjoy this. I thought the exploration of the two women and their motivations was really interesting, kind of fascinating in some cases. I definitely thought that it was worth it. And let's talk about the books that I am currently reading. Rainy from Rainy Day Reads and I are continuing our reading of the Little House on the Prairie books, and we are on Little Town on the Prairie. It is full of the wonderful nostalgia that I feel whenever I watch an episode of Little House on the Prairie, and I'm absolutely enjoying it. We will finish that tomorrow. I'm also reading a Christmas book, which I will read Christmas books through January, so it doesn't really faze me. I started reading it, and then I set it aside because I got distracted by other books, but decided I really wanted to pick it up. So I'm reading Cross Country Christmas by Courtney Walsh. It was recommended by a friend on Instagram for my 12 books recommended by 12 friends that I put out, and I'm really excited to be able to get one book off of my list because I really did bad at the 12 by 12 challenge last year. So I'm hoping that it goes a lot better this year. We will see. Third thing that I'm reading is Wait Till Helen Comes by Mary Downing Hahn. I'm reading this because I did the game board for the TBRathon hosted by Leandra from Leandra, the TBR Zero. I finished the board in 3 rolls. The first roll was spooky, the second roll was witchy vibes, and then I got home. So I'm reading Wait Till Helen Comes for spooky, and so far it's pretty spooky. I'm kind of enjoying it. So that's what I'm reading. Let me know down in the comments what your first book of 2024 is. What have you been reading? What do you think about the books that I've talked about? I would love to hear from you and chat with you down in the comments. Commenting, liking, and subscribing really helps my channel grow. I hope you're finding something wonderful to read, and until next time, happy reading. Bye.